and let them all in. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our next family orientation session. This session will be focused on academic advising. So, with us today, we have Vicki Cohen and Ashley Fullwood from the Academic Advising Office. We also have our very own student director, Grace Werner. So, we are happy to give you some information here today and then answer questions that you have. If you have a question about academic advising that you want to ask, go ahead and look for the chat function on the bottom of your screen. You'll be able to chat a question to either myself or Grace, and we will pass it on to our presenters. But I will turn it right over to academic advising so they can give you some information about what to expect this semester.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. And Ashley's going to be sharing her screen. So I'm Vicki Cohen. I am the director of the Academic Advising Center. And Ashley?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being with us. My name is Ashley Fullwood. I'm the Associate Director of the Academic Advising Center.
So we would like just to share with you some information about advising at Towson and what your students should expect. The next slide is, this is where our advising center is. So we are in the center of campus in a building called the lecture hall. And this is some of our staff. And for any students who have questions, general questions about advising, students can make appointments with us. We also have a group of really great student academic advisors who are available just for quick questions. We have a chat function on our website, so students can just type in a question as things come up, and we are happy to help them. All students have an academic advisor. So if your student says they don't know who their advisor is, they might not know, but they do have an advisor. So we'll get into a little more detail about that. But if anybody has any questions about who their advisor is, they can always contact us to get that information. And so the first thing that we like students to do for orientation is to go to the online orientation. And there is one for freshmen and there is one for transfer students. So before the students actually meet with an advisor during orientation time. So in the summer, it would be July, in the winter, it's January. We would want them to go through the online orientation first. So most of your students should have done that already. I believe you can do that as well as a guest. As a guest, you can go on there and look at the orientation. But we want students, that's the first step that we want students to take. And we're going to talk what advising looks like for transfer students and for freshmen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about transfer students first. So once students have completed the online orientation, we want to make sure that they have submitted all of their transcripts. If they've gone to one institution or three, we need all of those transcripts sent to the admissions office. And then the admissions office looks at the courses that the student has taken in other places and will evaluate those and place them as they might fit into Towson University requirements. So what will happen is they'll either be a direct equivalent to a general requirement or to a major requirement. Sometimes we don't have an exact equivalent, but the credits can be accepted as electives. And we'll get a little bit about into why that's important as well. But that's the first step. If advisors need to see that transfer evaluation so they can recommend the courses that students need. So during the advising and registration for orientation for transfer students actually, we're doing that virtually now, but we have students set up a date and time, and they will meet with an academic advisor from their major department so that an advisor can review the transfer evaluation, see where those classes fit into the Towson requirements, They'll review the requirements for the specific major. And then the student and advisor will actually create a schedule and enroll in classes during that advising and registration time. So most students should have done that already. Today is the last day that we have for orientation. So some students might be doing that today. But those students should have a schedule by the end of the day today. Once a transfer student has created their schedule, they have declared a major. Students will be assigned to an academic advisor in their major department. If a student doesn't know who that advisor is, they can log on to their online student services account and go to their student center, and their advisor will be listed there. If for some reason there is no advisor listed there and the student has a major, student should go to the major department as soon as possible to get an advisor. Like I said, every student should be assigned an advisor. If a student hasn't decided on a major yet, they will be assigned an advisor in our office, the Academic Advising Center, where we have professional advisors who work with students who are open majors, who are transfer students, who are any student who is in academic difficulty, but we won't talk about that because we know your students will do great. So we'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. And so those are the basics for transfer students. And now Ashley's going to talk a little bit about the process for freshmen.
Okay, so we know for freshmen that new experience is very exciting, but can also be maybe a little anxiety provoking or just seem overwhelming. So we do want to reassure you as families and students that we have a very special program for advising freshmen, new students who are coming in. It's called the First Year Experience Program. And this is going to be a program where your student is going to be assigned a advisor who's been specially trained to work with first year students. And so there will be key times during the semester where your freshmen will meet with their assigned advisor, and you'll see the the first year experience program is going to be indicated to students by what looks like a class called ORI 306 that will show on their schedule. It's a non-credit class and you don't pay for it, and it's not really a class, but it is a placeholder and a reminder for students that they have an assigned advisor and that they will be required to meet with them throughout the semester at various times. And so this program is designed to really, introduce students to college and help them with the transition from high school, and to work with their advisor to just gain a knowledge of how to navigate the college experience, and to teach them all the different academic policies and requirements, and to just get that general sense of how they can take control of their academic futures, and of course to keep them on track for graduation, which I know is important for you as parents and families, but also to students as well. So again, the FYE advisor is going to work with students to be a link to the TU campus community. That's really important now, since we are in this virtual environment where they are not necessarily, where they may not be physically on campus. And so that just makes it more challenging to know what is available, resources, academic wise, social wise. So the advisor is definitely going to be play an important role in helping them connect to the campus, especially if they're not there. We work with students on helping them identify their goals and objectives and developing an academic plan. And of course, we're going to provide them with crucial registration information and recommendations regarding course selection that is relevant and appropriate to the major that they have selected or want to pursue. And if they haven't chosen yet, part of that process will be working with them to help them explore the various majors at Towson, their interests, their goals, and to help them decide on a plan of study that fits them. So unlike transfer students who create their schedules with the help of the assistance of the advisors in their departments, our office, the Academic Advising Center, we create the schedules for freshmen their very first semester. And that's because there are a lot of factors that go into creating an appropriate schedule. And so we want to make sure that they get started on the right track. So we first look at their academic interest form, which they're asked to submit. And that gives us a lot of information about what they want to study, how many credits they want to take, what type of courses they're interested in, their preferences for their core courses. And so we use all of that information to guide us in selecting classes. We look at their placement tests. Students are asked to take a math placement exam. And so we look at that to determine what is the appropriate math class that they should take. We look at all of the other graduation requirements, which Vicki will go into more detail about in a few minutes. We look at what courses are available. So we know what they want to take and what they may have listed as their preferences on their interest form. But by the time we make courses, not all courses are offered every semester, and sometimes courses may be closed. So we do the best we can based on what they want, what they need, and then what's actually open and available. We also take into consideration if they have received AP credits or IB credits, or if they have any dual enrollment credits that they're transferring from a community college that they may have taken while they were in high school. So similar with transfer students, we don't want them to take classes that they are already getting credit for. So we look at what they are getting credit for, and so that we don't schedule them for those classes. And then in normal times, we also take into consideration whether the student is living on campus or if they're commuting, how far their commute is, because that can impact how we block their classes together. And we try to make it as convenient as possible if they are commuting versus if they're living on campus. And then of course, if they've selected a major, we are definitely looking at what the requirements are for the major, and every department gives us a list of what classes they would like first year students to take in their first year. So we use that information to create their schedule. Moving forward in upcoming semesters, students will create their own schedules, and part of the FYE program is teaching students how to do that and how to take these different factors into consideration to register for their own classes. All right, and now Vicki's going to talk a little bit about the graduation requirements.
So whether a student is a freshman or a transfer student, all students need to complete these requirements in order to graduate. So one is every student needs at least 120 credits to graduate. 119 won't do it. You've got to have all 120 at least. Most majors can be completed in that. The exception would be education. Because of certification requirements and student teaching. Sometimes I think they go up to 128 credits in order to be certified to teach. So, but 120 is what the minimum is. That's actually a state requirement. Students need to complete the core curriculum. There are 14 different core categories, and students need one class in each of those core categories. They can have more than one in a category, and some majors require several in a particular category, but students need at least one to meet those graduation requirements. Students need to complete a major. So you can't just take 120 random credits. You have to have a major. Some majors are very credit heavy, like education. If you're a computer science major, there are a lot of credits to complete that major. And in some of the liberal arts majors, there aren't quite as many, and students have the option of doing 2 majors. You can double major, or you can do a major and a minor. I know students who are doing 1 major and 2 or 3 minors. So depending on how students manage their schedule and their time, they can do more than 1 major, but they need at least 1 in order to graduate. Out of the 120 credits students need, they need to take 32 credits at the 300 or 400 level of classwork. So most of that can be completed within the major. So just by doing, if you just do a business major, that incorporates the 32 upper level credits, but that's just the minimum students need to have. And then students need a minimum of a 2.0 GPA in order to graduate. 2.0 is C's. So we know that your students can do at least as well as that. There are some majors, however, that are screened and you need a much higher GPA in order to get into those majors and complete those majors. So any student who is interested in health professions, speech pathology and audiology, nursing, and even education, they need a minimum GPA. So to teach, the students need at least a 2.75 GPA. For the business major, students need a 2.7 GPA in order to get into the major. For nursing, it's very competitive. So usually over a 3.5, students need at least that to get into the nursing major. But in order to graduate, it's just a 2.0. So when I mentioned earlier about elective credits, so sometimes we don't have an exact equivalent for a class that a student is transferring in, it still will go to those 120 credits. So we try to accommodate as many credits as possible for students who are transferring in credits. The other thing that I did want to mention is students need to meet with their advisor every semester. So there's actually a hold on their registration. Students can't register for a subsequent semester until they've met with their academic advisor. So the advisors can make sure that the students are actually on track to complete all of these graduation requirements. So, you know, when you look at a student, it's very easy to say, oh, well, I've completed my major requirements. Or I've completed my core requirements. But unless all of that totals up to 120 credits, they still won't be able to graduate. So we want to make sure that students stay on track, they graduate on time. That's what we want them to do. I'm sure that's what you want them to do as well. And in order to ensure that, they really do need to meet with their advisor every semester. So a lot of questions that we get from both freshmen and transfer students is they aren't sure that they want the classes that they registered for, or they start a class and say, this isn't what I thought it was, and I don't know if I want to do this. So students do have the option of changing their schedules up through February 2nd. So students can actually go to classes for the first week and evaluate the course content, look at the professor, see what the requirements are. They may decide that the class isn't what they thought it was, or they realize that for a transfer student, it's very similar to information that they learned in another class at another institution. So they do have the ability to change their schedules. Now, what we say is swap and don't drop, meaning that if a student just automatically drops a class, there isn't the guarantee that they can pick up a class. If a student is full-time, they need a minimum of 12 credits to be a full-time student. And that is important for financial aid and for insurance purposes, for residence purposes. There are a lot of reasons why students would want to keep a full schedule and have at least 12 credits. So we encourage students to find the course that they want to change to. And instead of dropping their first class, they actually swap the first class for the class that they want. And all of that is done through Towson Online Services, through the Student Center. There's information on how to do that add and drop. That information would be shown to them during orientation and in the online orientation program. Plus, there are lots of videos, or students can check with their advisor, which is what we really recommend before they actually change their schedule, just to make sure that they're still meeting requirements that they need.
Yeah, and I think for all students, but especially for freshmen who didn't select their classes themselves, this is a real benefit because you can encourage them to test drive the class. Like they may not know if they like it, and this allows them to start the class and maybe see if they want to keep it, and then still have the option to swap it if they need to by that deadline.
And sometimes students just need to check the balance of how each of the classes fit into their schedule too. So they do have that opportunity to change their schedule to make it a little more balanced.
Another way you can support your student is to just, touch base with them if they are, having any challenges. We have lots and lots of resources that are available to them. I think this has been something that some students may not be aware of or think is available, especially since we have been mostly virtual for the past couple semesters, but all of our campus and student resources are still open and providing the services to students, even if they're not physically on campus. So we have a full service career center on campus, and they do amazing work with students to help them if they are thinking about majors and are not sure what they want to study or what type of career they may want to pursue. There are lots of different assessments and career counseling that's available to students, and they can participate in these services online. The Career Center also helps with if students are searching for employment, internships, they need help with their resume, their LinkedIn profile, all of those interviewing skills, all of those skills are and services are available through the Career Center. If students are feeling challenged by their courses, the Tutoring and Learning Center, again, is a full service learning center on campus. Is normally their offices located in the library, but all of their services are being offered online. And that includes course specific tutoring. So if they're in a specific math class like calculus and they're not quite grasping the concepts and the content of the course, they can work with a tutor who's been successful in that course to help them throughout the semester. There's also something called academic coaching, which is more general, and there are skills that can help students across the board in all their classes. So if they need help with time management or note-taking skills, study skills, if they have test anxiety, they can get academic coaching to help them progress in any of those areas as well. We have group workshops that are offered throughout the semester, and those are available online. And each of these resources, if you go to their website, which you can easily access through the Towson website, they have a very specific information and instructions on how to access the resources virtually, who to contact, email, phone number, how to set up an appointment, etc. We have a writing center, which is really amazing, that can help students with any part of the writing process, whether it's brainstorming ideas for their papers, developing their paper, or if they just want someone to proofread or to help them with formatting, whether it's APA or any of the formatting that they need to submit. The library is a great resource, and the library is actually open for students to go in if they need a place to study, even if they're at home, if they're within commuting distance to the library and they want to get out of the house to have a quiet study environment, or just a change of pace. The library is open. Students can go in, they can study, they can access the resources there. We have an amazing counseling center that is offering services throughout the semester, individual counseling sessions. They actually transitioned to same-day appointments now, so it's really easy for students to speak to someone the same day if they are having any type of challenges or struggles. They are mostly doing virtual appointments. They have counseling groups. They have stress relief sessions, all types of resources to help students kind of manage their mental health in today's climate and with the pandemic and with anything that they may be dealing with. We have a public communication center. So just like the writing center helps with papers, students can utilize the public communication center to help them develop any presentations that they have to present for their classes. So again, they can help them from the planning process to creating a presentation to practicing their public speaking and being able to deliver those speeches or presentations confidently. Our Center for Student Diversity is open, and they have programming as well as other support services that are available to students. And again, you would just go to the website to be able to see what those programs and services are. And then we also have accessibility and disability support services, which is for any student who has a physical or emotional or mental disability. If there were ever accommodations received in high school or at any point, and students need those need similar accommodations to help support them through the college experience, there are lots of different accommodations that can be offered to students through ADS, and they would meet with a specialist and have an evaluation and determine what accommodations would best suit your particular student individually. So definitely encourage your students to take advantage of these resources. There aren't any additional charges. You pay for tuition, and this is a service that is provided as a part of that. So it's good to, get your money's worth and to especially just utilize the support that's available to help them be successful while they're at Towson. And I believe that's everything, at least initially up front. So if anyone has questions, now would be the time that you can type them in the chat bar, and Catherine and Grace will relay those questions to us, and we'll do our best to answer those for you.
Not seeing any yet. So while we give folks a minute to think of a question and put it in the chat, I'll take this time to remind you that we do have 2 more family orientation sessions. Tonight at 5, we'll have our health and counseling centers talking about physical and mental health. And then tomorrow at noon, we'll have our Towson University Police Department talking about campus safety. So feel free to come back and join us this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon. And then all of our family information, including signing up for our free family newsletter, can be found on our Towson Families website, which is at towson.edu/families. So that's a good hub for everything family related, all of the resources that are targeted specifically for you. And we hope that you'll join us. So I'm still not seeing any questions. Grace, what are some things that you're thinking about as a student that might be helpful for these folks for academic advising?
Something I think that's important to know is how students know when their registration date is for classes and how far in advance before that date should students meet with their advisor to have that hold lifted and be able to go over what they should be taking for the next semester.
Yeah, that's
it's a good question. Every student is given a specific registration appointment, a date and time based on the number of credits they've earned. So seniors are going to go first because they have more very specific classes that they're going to have to take to graduate, and it goes from there. So students need to meet with their advisor. They will have a hold on their registration until they meet with their advisor, but their registration appointments can be found on their student center. And usually those appointments are set at least a month before they actually have to register. So students will be registering for fall classes in April, and they will know what their dates are for registration by mid-March, either early or mid-March. And they'll be able to check that on their Student Services Center. Ashley, did you want to add?
The only thing I'll add to that is So students will definitely have the advising hold, but there may also be other holds that they'll see that will block their registration as well. So sometimes it's us and they haven't met with us yet, but if there's a past due balance, or sometimes when certain health requirements haven't been met, or I'm trying to think of any other big ones, but there's a section on their online services student center that tells them what holds they have on their account. And so it is important for students to always be aware of if they have holds, and there's information there that tells them who they need to contact in order to get those holds removed. And if they're not sure, again, the academic advisor, I feel like, is always a great point of contact. So even if you're not sure, if the student's not sure where to go, it may not be us, but more than often we can direct the student to where and who they need to speak to get those matters addressed. So we're a great point of contact for any questions, or if students need to know where they need to be.
Thank you. And I'm seeing a couple questions in the chat now. One, I will take myself about orientation, since that's through our office. So student orientation, the last two are today and tomorrow. If your student is a transfer student, the last orientation is today. If your student's a freshman, the last orientation is tomorrow. So if they have not registered for or completed orientation, they need to do so as soon as possible by calling our office. That's going to be the fastest way. So they are going to want to call 410-706-2309. I can put that number in the chat as well to sign up for orientation this afternoon or tomorrow afternoon. More than likely, your student has completed orientation already if they're starting in the spring. So the other questions I'm seeing are about online versus in-person questions. So as far as being marked on their PeopleSoft online services account, if a class is marked TBA, will that be online, or is that still potentially in person?
The only class, well, there's several things. First of all, the first 2 weeks of classes are going to be virtual, all of them. After that, about 85% of the classes are going to be virtual. There will be some online, some on campus, but the on-campus classes will be limited in the physical space so that there's appropriate physical distancing among the students and the faculty members. And every class will be available virtually. So even if a class is meeting in person, students who choose not to come to campus or can't come to campus can still take those classes virtually. If a class has an indication of online, that means the class is totally online. If it has TBA, most likely there's a time attached to that, which means that those classes will be meeting virtually at that time. So vocabulary that I never knew before all of this happened was synchronous and asynchronous. So online classes are generally asynchronous, and classes that have TBA with a specific time will be meeting synchronously at that time. So all the students will meet just like a regular class, but they will be online. Some students may be in a classroom, but every student has the opportunity to take those classes online. Did that answer the question?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
I'll give folks just a second, see if anything else comes through. In the meantime, I always like to wrap up these sessions by having our campus partners let folks know if they have additional questions. If their student needs to get in contact with your office, what is the best way for a student to go about that?
Ashley, you want to take that?
Sure. So the best way to get in contact with us really for our office is any way like on our website. So email, if students email advising@towson.edu, that's our general advising mailbox that general questions can go to. If students know who their academic advisor is, they can email them directly. But even though we are not physically. So our office, just so you know, this semester we will have some limited coverage in the office for the spring semester, Monday through Thursday. And so someone will be there physically in the office to answer phone calls and to meet with students if they're on campus and need assistance. On Fridays, we will be completely virtual. However, if you call our office, our phones still work. You will still be able to meet with someone. Or to speak with someone, I'm sorry. So you can call, you can email, and then starting the week of February 8th, we will have a physical presence in the office Monday through Thursdays from 9 to 4 p.m. But our general business office hours are 8 to 5. And so that's when you can, whether through email or phone, be able to reach someone as well.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Well, not seeing any more questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up. I just want to say thank you to Vicki and Ashley for joining us, and to Grace always, and to all of our guests for joining us. We hope to see you tonight at 5 or tomorrow at noon for our last 2 family orientation sessions, and go Tigers.